Okay, we're going to try and set up the OIM generic connector we use REST services because it's a generic REST connector, I guess. So this will use OKTA as a model, and we'll just replicate a couple of their APIs since we can't really easily go get their stuff. So here we have create user. We can create user with password. Okay, so this is basically the layout here. Here's the model. It's a post operation, and it has this activate true. What that does is set the user active. We don't really need to worry about that for our case. We're just trying to make sure the data gets back and forth properly. So here's an example of what the OKTA model would look like minus this. We're not going to deal with that either right now. So we basically need to replicate this model or pretty close to it just so we can test this. So that was a create user. It's a post operation. You can see what the curl looks like here. And here's the JSON model it's sending in. We're not going to use this. We're using basic auth. Okay, so that's one. We need to create user that has the /user part. So now we do update user. So update user is a put, but this part here is very important. So the put method will only do an attribute more or less. So it'll wipe out all the other ones. It's kind of like a replace with whatever one attribute you send. The post method is for a single attribute update. So from an OIM perspective, when a change event happens, that's pretty much what we want to do. So we're going to model the post instead of the put. So we go down here to the post. Well, actually, we just changed this to a post. So, all right. So we see what the model looks like. Now let's go take a look at the REST service. Okay, so here's our OKTA user. We have the profile and a credentials section. So in here we have the profile and then the credentials, and now we have the OKTA profile here. This all goes inside that part we saw here. And here's the credentials. This has the provider thing inside here. So let's go look at that. Okay, so here's the profile. And over here we have the OKTA user. And then over here we have the provider. And then the provider has the that and the profile, and the password is inside there, like that. So all these models are set up to make it look like that JSON layout when we send it back and forth. Okay, so let's close all this mess here. Let's pull up the service. Okay, so as you can see, it's an API v1. We're doing /users. This is the create method with the post to pass in the JSON model. Okay, and then here's our post update single attribute. Here's the user ID key passed in. We still pass in the model, but there's only going to be the one attribute. And again, here's the get all users. Okay, now this code here is going to put everything in memory. We got a static initializer that we're storing stuff in. We're not really writing a real connector here. We're just making sure that the REST service can see the data going back and forth, and that's really what we're more interested in. We're not rewriting OKTA here. So, okay. So what we do is we go over here, build this puppy. And then we'll deploy him to our OIM server. Boop. Go to our OIM server, copy that guy over there, and that'll fire up Tomcat. This is our OIM server. We're running Tomcat on 8080 with these REST services pretty much sitting right next to it. Okay, REST services are fired up. Let's run some tests. So, we don't need that. Okay, so here we're sending in our auth headers, and then we're going to do a get all first. Of course, nothing will be there. to create a user, and we're going to update the user, and then we're going to do a get all again. So let's see how that looks. Here we go. New users on the first one. Add the new user. Here's all the data. Get the user back. The printouts will be over on the other side of this. So here's the new and the old and the new coming in. All right, set and active. We don't necessarily have to do that because OKTA will, but we're doing it to make sure the data gets over on the update correctly. So everything's going through. Now, when we see it in OIM, we're only going to see one attribute for the update come over. All right, so that's pretty much a wrap for the REST services. Here's the data that was coming back and forth on the get all and the create and the get all and then the update and whatnot. So, okay, and you see every time we run this, we have two choices on the service. We can either pass in the so we can either pass in a key with the model, or this is going to create one with a random UUID. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for the REST service.